Could it be? With me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to Sunday Night Football Overtime. Packers. Go, Pack, go. Taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, we didn't get what we thought we were going to get, which was supposed to be Rodgers versus Mahomes, which was going to be epic. But that was pretty damn good. Okay, Matt Moore filled in admirably. Now, look, I think I figured out our problem to primetime football. Just put the Green Bay Packers on, and we'll get a good game. The Packers have been on every single platform this season. They've been on once on Thursday night, really good football game versus the Philadelphia Eagles. They've been on Thursday night, again, first game of the season versus Chicago Bears. That was a snoozer, but it was a close game, all right? Been on Sunday night, tonight versus the Chiefs, really good game. And they were on Monday night, really good game versus the Detroit Lions, one they probably stole, but nonetheless, really good football game. So if we're looking for competitive games that are going to give us a close finish, just put the Green Bay Packers in the game. They're going to find a way to win, but it's going to be close, and it's going to be very competitive and compelling football. For the Chiefs, wow, 3 straight home losses. This was one of the venues that going into the season, I said there are only 2 teams in the league capable of going undefeated at home. 3 teams capable of going undefeated at home this season. The New England Patriots, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody else probably going to suffer a home defeat at some point. You could add the Green Bay Packers in with what they've done this season, but I wouldn't really be that confident in putting them in that discussion quite yet. However, you look at the Chiefs, they've lost 3 straight at the crib. They've struggled at Arrowhead. And this was prior to the Patrick Mahomes injury. So it's not like, oh yeah, they lost Patrick Mahomes losing games at the crib. I get it. No, 2 of those 3 losses with Patrick Mahomes under center. So they're struggling to protect their home. And I don't think any of us saw that coming going into the season. Now, when I look at these 2 teams, I see both teams having issues defensively. The Packers, however, are able to create turnovers, and they're able to get to the quarterback. Those things help you win football games in this league. Meanwhile, for the Chiefs, they're not creating turnovers, and they have issues getting stops on third down, and they have issues stopping the run, and they have issues stopping the pass. It's funny because people are saying that this defense is worse than it was last year. I don't know if I feel that way, but it's hard to argue with people that think it's worse than last year's defense. When you look at the way they've produced this year, I think it's less production on offense that makes the defense look worse than the one that we saw last year. I think that the one last year was just better, just worse than this defense. And I think this defense is a little bit more talented. I just think that they haven't had the same support that they were getting from this Chiefs offense last year, which just had it on absolute tilt. Okay, much like the Rams, who have had to figure out how to reinvent themselves. And it doesn't hurt when you're riding a 3-game skid to find teams like the Falcons and the Bengals appear on your schedule for the Rams to get right. The Chiefs could use a couple of softies their way to help them right this ship. But nonetheless, they continue to compete. That's the thing I love about Andy Reid coached teams, is that it doesn't matter what you throw at them, they're going to compete, especially with the amount of talent that they have on this football team. They threw in Matt Moore into the fray. And I said last week, Matt Moore is a veteran, and I think I even said it on the podcast. Matt Moore is a veteran in this league that if you get after him, you can force him into some mistakes. But if you give Matt Moore time, he can carve you up. He's a quality NFL backup quarterback. I've always liked Matt Moore as a backup in this league. And I think the best throw from him tonight is also a microcosm of his career. You know, rolling out of the pocket, under duress, takes a shot in the mouth. We all remember that vicious shot he took in that playoff game as a Miami Dolphins versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. One of the most brutal hits I've ever seen on a football field. But stares down the gun barrel outside of the pocket, and Matt Moore's always had a little bit of athleticism, and throws a beautifully elevated football. I mean, the amount of touch and air and arc on that football to allow Travis Kelce to first locate it, because Kelce had beat his defender but wasn't looking for the rock. He had literally just gotten free, and as he turns, he looks up into the air, and there's the football. And now he's got to find a way to go adjust and go get it. And because it was thrown with such arc and so much air and touch underneath it, he had a chance to gather himself, find the football, and then go and get it. And so, to me, that's Matt Moore right there in a nutshell. The ability to make something out of nothing, throw the football down the field with touch, and take a shot. But then, in the same breath, he's a guy that'll turn it over. And I've always liked Matt Moore, and tonight was another reason why I like Matt Moore. We didn't think we were getting the kind of ball game that we got, and he stood up. He got this team back in the game when it looked like they were going to get run out of the building. And we're going to talk about the Packers, because this is becoming a theme with the Green Bay Packers. Get out to these early starts and then fizzle, allow the other team to get back into the game, and then have to hold on for dear life at the very end. We'll talk about that here in a second, but I just want to finish up on the Chiefs. They really competed their asses off tonight. And look, there are no participation trophies being given out here, and there are no moral victories to be scored. All right, when we look at the standings, either you won or you lost. There's no M column for moral victory, okay? You either won or you lost the game. They lost the game tonight, but they competed their asses off and gave us a good game tonight, and that's part of the reason why they're still the class of the AFC West. That and the rest of that division stinks. But that's no here nor there. You get to the Green Bay Packers, though. And like I just mentioned, that's something that I find fascinating. You had the Eagles game where they jumped out to a massive lead in the first quarter. Looked like they were going to blow the Eagles out and couldn't hold on. Ultimately lost that football game, lost Devontae Adams, hasn't played since. You had the Minnesota Vikings game, which I think was the most egregious of all of them, even though you lost the Eagles game and you won the Vikings game. That one was 21-0. There's no excuse for what happened in that game. Almost lost that game, and I argue that you probably should have lost that game. Kirk Cousins doesn't throw that interception in the end zone. You probably do lose that football game, but you blew a 21-point lead in that game. You look at the Cowboys game was interesting because if not for all the turnovers, I think you were up like 31-7, 31-6, 31-10, something like that. And then the Cowboys made a run, and they were coming for you, and then they turned it over again. Dak throws another pick and kind of ended all of the momentum that they had. But you were well on your way to making that game a lot more interesting than it needed to be. You look at this game here, same deal. Jump out to an early lead, and then you just have trouble holding on to that lead and keeping the momentum. The first quarters have been good to you. The second, not so much. And then it's just like a uphill battle and a struggle the rest of the game until you find a way to figure it out and get the win in the fourth quarter, which is winning time. And you found ways to do that this season. But for as good as the defense looked early in the season, I still think they have issues stopping the run. I think you can throw the football on this team, but you're going to have to do it while blocking their edge rushers, because both Smiths have been outstanding this season at getting to the quarterback. And even if they don't hit home, they apply pressure to force your quarterback to have to maneuver and manipulate the pocket. So they've done a really good job of rushing the quarterback. And then at that, you put that pressure on and they start to be very cognizant of the rush. And you get errant throws. And you had a couple of opportunities tonight for some interceptions. One tipped off the hands of Darnell Savage in the end zone. You had opportunities to create some turnovers tonight. You did so by forcing Shady McCoy to fumble. I thought that was a major play in this game. That forced fumble there was a game changer, because what it effectively did was it swung the momentum fully in the Packers' favor. Remember, they were trailing 17-14 at the half. They get the field goal to start the second half, and then they come right out, force that fumble to Shady McCoy, recover, and ultimately go down and score the touchdown. And from that point forward, it was pretty much their game to lose, and they were able to make all the plays necessary to come out on top 31-24. So this defense hasn't been great all season long, but they've been good enough. And I've always said the great equalizer is forcing turnovers, and the Packers have done that at a very alarming rate this season. And it's allowed them to get off to the 7-1 start that they've gotten off to this season. Rodgers was magnificent. And don't sit here, much like Russell Wilson, and I'm going to continue to say this, Russell Wilson didn't mean to throw that touchdown pass on that Thursday night versus the Rams. He was throwing that football away. I'm not believing that he put that football pinpoint accurate like that. That was a throwaway that ended up in the right spot, similar to this throw. All right. That throw by Rodgers, no way Aaron Rodgers was throwing that to the corner of the end zone to Williams. Come on, man. I'm not buying that, man. I'm not going to allow Rodgers. Look, he's a bad, bad man. And you know how I feel about Aaron Rodgers. I am not giving him credit for that, man. There is no way Rodgers meant to do that. Now, if he really wanted to throw it away, he could have thrown it away. So while on one hand, I'm contradicting myself, but while on one hand, I understand how you could just say, look, man, if Aaron Rodgers wanted to throw the football away, he could have thrown it 3, rows up into the stands. Like, you don't throw it away in the field of play. If he was trying to throw it away, he could have thrown it away. But then I counter with, it was the dude draped all over his legs as he was going down. Maybe he couldn't get enough on it. There's no way, and I've seen Rodgers do some amazing things. So I don't know why I'm doubting him right now because he's fully capable. But no, I'm not giving him credit. Just like I'm not giving Russell Wilson credit for that on the Thursday night versus the Rams to Tyler Lockett. I can't. That isn't. Guys aren't supposed to be able to do that on command. No, that was luck. That was pure T luck, and I'm sticking to that. Steadfast. So, but for me, the real story here is Aaron Jones, man. I've been a massive Aaron Jones guy ever since he came out of UTEP. I said, he's the missing piece for this Packers offense. For years, the Packers have searched far and wide for running back help. All right. They've went through a slew of guys, and they haven't been able to find the guy to help them balance out this offense. Rodgers isn't getting any younger. The targets at wide receiver aren't getting any better. You got Devontae Adams and a bunch of role players, whether it's Geronimo Allison or Marquez Valdez Scantling, or it's Jake Kumaro. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on, all right? It's a bunch of role players, guys that any week could get you, but you're not looking for consistent production from these guys. All right, Valdez Scantling could get you for 3 catches and 91 yards, and one of those going for 66 and a touchdown. And then the next week, he could have 3 catches for 16 yards. Jake Kumaro made another big grab tonight. Made a big grab last week. You get these things from these guys. So you really don't know what you're going to get week to week, but they all play a role. They all play a part. But you need to balance it out with a rushing attack and a guy that can catch it out of the backfield. And I think more so than his rushing ability was Aaron Jones' ability to catch it out of the backfield that I was so impressed with out of UTEP. I don't think he caught it as much at UTEP, but I knew he was fully capable. And I was so impressed with him early on in his Packers career, even though he was dealing with injuries and some off-the-field issues. I was so impressed with his ability to catch it out of the backfield. And now with Matt LaFleur there as your offensive coordinator, they're getting him more involved in the passing game, something that they really failed to do under Mike McCarthy. Now they're actually getting him the football out in routes, out in space, like the touchdown grab he had against the Raiders last week, or the one he should have had the week prior to that on Monday Night Football versus the Lions that he dropped. He's a guy that can hurt you in the pass game. He's a phenomenal pass catcher. You saw it again tonight on the screen. They got it to him quickly. He makes a play. The guy led the team in rushing and receiving in this football game. And to think, at one point, they didn't know if he was coming back because he had a shoulder injury, and he missed the latter portion of the first half. And yet this guy led the team in both receiving and rushing, was outstanding in this game. To me, right now, after Rodgers, he's the MVP for this football team on the offensive side of the football. And he continues to carry the load offensively for them, whether it's catching the football, whether it's running the football, or even being a protector in the pass game. I think that he is so versatile. He creates so many mismatches for the Packers. He's been outstanding for them, and I've been thoroughly impressed with him. And I like Jamal Williams, too. I think it's for years, the Packers couldn't find a guy. Now they have 2 of them that are very capable at the running back position. And I know Devontae Adams a couple of weeks ago said, if you don't think that those are the two best backs in terms of duos in the league, then you must be stupid. I don't know if I'll go that far, but I haven't actually sat down and made a list of duos in this league at the running back position. I'm pretty sure if I sat down and concentrated hard enough, I could probably find one better, or at least one with a pure star, and then another guy that's quality enough to make it all work. But I really like what they have in Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones as a 1-2 tandem in that backfield in Green Bay. And so both of those guys found pay dirt tonight. Jones twice, Williams once. It was a really good effort by this Packers offense. I think they're still evolving under their new head coach, Matt LaFleur. I still don't think they've hit their stride quite yet. But the thing that is most impressive is that they're finding ways to win. It's not pretty every single week. It's a new guy, as I mentioned, every single week. You don't know who's going to show up in that Lions game. You know, big catch from the Lazard kid. You know, I mean, guys are just stepping up, you know, and you don't know where it's going to come from. But just to think that they haven't had Devontae Adams since week 4. They haven't had him since week 4, and they've won 4 straight. I mean, it's amazing what they've done in his absence, similar to what the Saints have done without without Drew Brees. It's not the same. Obviously, one's a quarterback, one's a wide receiver, but Devontae Adams means so much to this offense, yet they've just kept chugging along offensively. And part of the reason why, probably the biggest reason why, is the production that they've gotten out of Aaron Jones at the running back position, along with Jamal Williams. So to me, that's probably been the most impressive thing I've seen from the Packers, is how well they've established the run, but also used those backs out of the backfield, mainly Aaron Jones, to create mismatches in the passing game and actually get him the football. You're seeing guys like the super back, you know, Vitale, getting open and catching a football, and they're utilizing all of these guys. That's part of the reason I love Matt LaFleur and love what he brings to the table, because that Kyle Shanahan mentality, all of those guys get everyone involved. Running backs can catch it out of the backfield, they're going to get those guys involved. Fullbacks can catch it out of the backfield, they're going to get those guys involved. You have to cover all eligibles when you're playing against these types of coaches, because they're going to incorporate everyone and make you have to think about how you defend that team. And I think Matt LaFleur has done a great job of doing that this season, giving teams multiple looks. So when you're watching the Packers and you're preparing for them, hey, let's not forget about the fullback out of the backfield. He'll catch it. He'll go up the sideline on a wheel route and he'll hurt us. Or he'll work the middle of the football field and they'll get it to him. So let's make sure we're mindful of where he is at all times. Got to keep tabs on Aaron Jones out of the backfield. They're doing some really freaky things with him. He ran a corner route for a touchdown last week versus Oakland, okay? Like, they're doing some really creative things with these guys out of the backfield. And then all of a sudden, you start looking for those guys, and now, boom, they hit you over the top with MVS. Or, boom, they hit you over the top with Jake Kumaro now. I mean, or Lazard, or one of these other guys. It's ridiculous how they've been able to just mix and match these parts and find ways to be productive, but that's what they've done, and it's led them to a 7-1 mark here after 8 weeks of football, and this was an impressive win. Again, you expected them to go in there and take care of business, but this league, it's tough every week to win. You know, and I may downplay the Patriots' dominance early in this season. Oh, they haven't played anybody. You still got to go out and win. We've seen teams fall short, all right, play a bad game or come up with a flat tire against one of these teams that has a pothole trap set there for them, and they run right into it. We saw the Cowboys run right into one a couple of weeks ago versus the Jets. You got to find a way to navigate your way through these NFL schedules and just win games. And it doesn't matter who the opponent is. Find a way to get it done. And teams like Green Bay, New Orleans, and these Packers or the Patriots have found ways to do it just about as good as anybody in the league. You know, throw the 49ers in there. They're undefeated. And, you know, you just got to find ways to win. Doesn't matter who the competition is. Find ways to win. Because what winning does is it begets confidence. Confidence begets winning. It's a vicious, flavor, delicious, poetic scripture, man. It's a wonderful cycle to be in the midst of. And that's where the Packers are right now. That's where the Patriots are right now. That's where the 49ers are right now. That's where the Saints are. You continue to win, and that's why I said it doesn't really matter who the competition is. You can sit here and talk about, you haven't done this, you haven't played this team, you haven't beat that team, whatever the case may be. Just winning. You expect to go out and win. The more you win, the more you expect to win. And this is a Packers team that early in the season, I saw a team that was flawed, but I didn't know if they would be able to win consistently on a week in, week out basis. And as they found ways to win, the confidence has grown. And now I think this is a team that's going to be tough to deal with moving forward for the remainder of the 2019 season. And this is a nice win on the road at Arrowhead. I know no Patrick Mahomes makes it a tad bit easier, but that was still a hard-fought football game. And the Chiefs came to play. And they stepped up, made some plays, and forced the Packers to have to make some plays. And Shady's always carried that football loosely. I'm surprised he doesn't fumble more than he does. But that was, to me, one of the biggest plays in this football game was Shady putting the ball on the carpet. But hats off to Matt Moore, making some plays. Tyreek Hill making some plays. How about Mecole Hardman? My goodness. We talked about him being a Tyreek Hill clone and how now they've got two of them. And what's better than one? Two of the fastest guys in the league. And man, was he on display tonight. And he can hurt you on specials, as he had a big return in this game. He can hurt you at the receiving position. As we saw, they get it to him really quickly on a I want to say it was either a crosser, a shallow crosser, or a tunnel screen. And he did the rest of the work there. They can give it to him on a jet sweep or, anything in the backfield. This guy is such a weapon, is Mecole Hardman. And, man, is he fast. God damn. So, they've got speed everywhere. They got speed for days. Samuel Watkins can still run. And so, looks like Mahomes will be back a little bit sooner rather than later. And tell you what, this Chiefs team, if they can get a semblance of consistency out of their defense, or even just start creating some turnovers, which is something they haven't done with regularity this season. If they can just do one or the other, and they've been a little bit better. Like this game, this could have gotten ugly, but they kind of managed to weather the storm after the 14-0 deficit that they found themselves in early in this game, and they actually played pretty good. I mean, 17 points in the second half isn't good, but it kept you in this ball game. You didn't get stops when you needed them to, and that's the real mark and test of a defense. When I need you to get a stop, can you go out and get one? They weren't able to do that tonight necessarily, but they did give their offense a chance, late in this game. They had the football with a chance to tie the ball game up, and they failed to produce a first down, had to punt, and they simply couldn't get that stop that was necessary after that to get the ball back to the offense one final time. So, bottom line is, if they can just create some turnovers or be a little bit more consistent, and as I mentioned, ever since that Denver game, which was last week, and now this week, I feel like the defense has played much better. But again, you give up 31 points, and you give up a bunch of yards to one guy in Aaron Jones. It's rough. He had over 200 yards of all-purpose yards in this football game, catching, receiving, and rushing. You got to be a little bit better than that, and you knew they were running the football late in this ball game, still allowed them to gash you. And then you knew on a 3rd and 5 that they were going to try to spread you out. They went empty, and you just went pure man-to-man and gave up way too much space. A simple speed out to the outside shouldn't be enough to pick up the first down, but it was. So this defense just needs to be better. Plain and simple, but they gave it a run tonight. And with Matt Moore at quarterback, you couldn't ask for much more than that. And he produced for you, gave you an opportunity. The defense really didn't hold up their end of the bargain. The offense scores 24 points with Matt Moore. I need that to be enough. I need you to find a way to make that stick. And unfortunately, they weren't able to do that tonight. They give up 31 points and lose this game 31-24. Packers now 7-1 on the season, remain atop the NFC North, a half game ahead of a full game ahead of the Minnesota Vikings. Meanwhile, the Kansas City Chiefs remain atop the AFC West at 5 and now 3. And they still got a 2-game lead, and really 3 because they own the season series over the Raiders right now at 1-0 over the 3-5 Oakland Raiders. So let's get to your comments and see what you guys have to say. What up, Vlad? The 20th Mike says, LOL. NBC was actually worried that this game was going to be a fluke. Credit to Matt, but I prefer Mahomes. We all would have, but they actually gave us a much better performance than we thought we were going to get without. And honestly speaking, I thought Matt Moore could come out and perform well because, as I mentioned before, I'm not overly impressed with this Packers defense. They're solid. They're not anything that should scare anyone. And I thought Matt Moore could come out and do this if they protected him. And for the most part, they did. There were a couple of pressures and a few sacks in there. Rodgers was under more duress than he was. Rodgers also had some time on some plays, but Rodgers was under more duress, and Rodgers was sacked far more times in this game than Matt Moore was. So I thought they did a bang-up job of protecting Matt Moore, giving him an opportunity, and Matt Moore made the most of those opportunities for the most part tonight. There's some throws he would like back. The deep ball to Tyreek Hill. I mean, you're asking a guy who doesn't have the strongest arm in the world to launch it. And if that's Mahomes, maybe that's a 95-yard touchdown or however far that would have been 85 yards. Maybe that's a touchdown. Maybe Mahomes throws in an extra 3 yards out in front and Hill is able to run under it and split those two defenders and go the distance and throw and chuck up the deuce. But, you know, that's the trade-off when there's no Mahomes and you're talking about Matt Moore. So KT, the Southern Gent says, which team will clinch a playoff berth first? Saints, Pats, or Niners? I think I would have to say, because of the state of the Niners division and the state of the Saints division, I would say, and really the Saints division is interesting because Carolina lost today. They've got a big question to answer. Well, I think we got the answer today, though. You know, I was never going to be one to say, hey, can't give up on Cam Newton. That just wasn't my stance. But I think today kind of solidified that Kyle Allen is human and that he's not better than Cam Newton, at least not right now. Maybe he will be ultimately. I don't know. But I want to see Cam Newton healthy. That's been my biggest thing. He hasn't been healthy. Everybody wants to write this guy off, talking about his body's breaking down on him, this, that, and the third. Okay, let's see him get healthy first. And if he comes back and he stinks and he's healthy and he has no excuse, okay, fine. All right, then we can start writing Cam Newton off. But I think the team is going to be the Pats because I look at their division and there will be no one to keep pace with them. Buffalo lost today, and I still believe in the Buffalo Bills, but they've already lost to New England, and now they have to go to Foxborough and try to win. So you're looking at the 8-0 Pats, the 5-2 Bills, but they've also already beaten them. So that's an extra game half a game if you're thinking of it in that regard. And so you're looking at the Pats already a full 3 games up on the rest of the competition, essentially in that division. It's going to be the New England Patriots again. I think when it's all said and done, it's going to be the Patriots. Junior 13 says, Aaron Jones is a monster. That's a damn good back. Indeed, he is. I talked about him already all night long. Dude is exceptional. I knew he was special coming out of UTEP. I really thought he would be a perfect fit for this Packers offense. And now that, and that was with McCarthy. I thought he was going to be a really good fit. Now I think he's an even better fit now that Matt LaFleur is in charge of getting him in space and getting him opportunities to be successful. I think he's even in better hands now than he was before with McCarthy as your head coach. KT, the Southern Gent, says, can Mike Thomas get some love for his performances against Patrick Peterson? 11 receptions for over 100 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, he was good. He was really good. Pat Pete also got an interception in that game, but he was good. He was really good. But we know how good he is. You know, I don't think there's any debate that, you know, Michael Thomas is one of the better receivers in all of football. KT, the Southern Gent, says, are you buying that a blockbuster trade will happen before the deadline on Tuesday? Nope. I think there will be more trades. However, you know, I could see a Kenyon Drake, a Robbie Anderson. I talked about this on my podcast, though, so I'm not going to really elaborate that. You want to know how I feel about some of these moves. I had a nice gym dropping session on the trade deadline and some more moves that I think could take place and some guys that you need to keep an eye on. So, but I do think some deals will happen. But, you know, a Trent Williams or someone of that stature moving teams, and AJ Green, I don't see any of those guys being moved before the deadline. Let's see. Reese says, opening phone lines? Nope. I'll open them tomorrow, however, for Rep Your Squad, as I always do. Ricky L says, even though they gave up 31, I thought the D looked improved. If Mahomes was in, Chiefs would have won. I don't know if they would have won the game or not. But I told you this defense has a long way to go. But I think over the last 2 weeks, and I kind of said that towards the end, they've been better to me. They were really good against Denver, but Denver's offense stinks. But I thought they were okay. 17 points in the second half isn't okay. But that turnover that the offense had that gave Green Bay that momentum, that's tough to put on the defense. Now, they still had an opportunity to come out and force a field goal, and they gave up a touchdown. But that's a tough spot to be put in after you just got off the field on a long drive and you held them to a field goal. So I thought the defense was put in a pretty compromising position after the fumble by Shady McCoy. And they tried to hold up, but they couldn't. They gave up the touchdown. But then I thought this was the most telling drive. If you think that the one at the end was the backbreaker when they weren't able to get the stop to get the ball back to the offense, I thought it was, hey, Matt Moore takes the offense down the field. They tie the game back up at 24. You're feeling good. And you let them go right back down the field and get a touchdown and get the lead back to 31-24. That, to me, was the backbreaker. The Aaron Jones catch and run, that was the backbreaker. That was the one that hurt the most. But I agree. I thought the defense was better today than they have been for much of the season. Last week, obviously, was by far and away their best performance of the season versus the Denver Broncos. Azad Belial says, can we please see Rodgers versus Brady Super Bowl? It would be perfect for the 100th season. What's your ideal Super Bowl this year? I don't know if I want to see the Patriots in the Super Bowl again, but I think we've waited long enough for Brady Rodgers, and this is probably our last chance to get it. Let's be honest with ourselves. We're hearing that Brady wants to hang it up. I don't believe that for 1 second. I talked about that on the podcast. I can't see that happening. But these two teams are really good right now. You got one at 7-1, the other at 8-0. You're talking about two teams that ultimately could have home field advantage throughout in their respective conferences. This might be the best opportunity we've had for Brady Rodgers to happen in quite some time. And, it feels like Pacquiao and Mayweather, like we got it 5 or 6 years too late, but shit, I'll take it anyway. I mean, you guys took the bait of Pacquiao, Mayweather, when both were way past their primes, paid a bunch of money for it. I'd still take it, you know what I mean? But I would like to see, but I don't know who else I would like to see in the AFC. Maybe Mahomes, I guess. But I don't know if there's anybody else we're really clamoring to see. So, I don't know. Anyway, let's see. See if we got any more comments. Junior says, my guy Lou, does Jameis want to be good or not? And Sam Darnold still seeing ghosts. Laugh my ass off. Eagles now contenders / respected again. I talked about the Eagles. I knew they were going to win this game. I picked them. If you haven't had a chance to check out my money picks of the week, they're on the podcast every single week. So if you want to know what games I'm going with, what teams I expect to win, I told you prior to the week taking place that this was an easy week. No excuse for you not to win 12, 13 games. I think right now I'm sitting at 13-1. I think my lone loss was the Bears, and they were literally a missed field goal away from getting it done, and I'd be perfect on the week. And with the Steelers game pending on Monday against the winless Dolphins, I could have easily went 15-0 this week. I mean, it was a really easy week, and there were only 2 toss-ups, and that was the Eagles game, Eagles at Bills, and the Titans-Bucks game. To me, were the 2 games that I thought, hey, I got a chance to lose these games, but I'm gonna, and the Bears game, that was a flip a coin game, and I thought Indy could lose at home to Denver. Thought that was a possibility, but I liked Indy's chances, and they were able to pull it out late. So, to answer your questions though, Jameis wants to be good. He's just got that. He's got that innate ability to turn the football over. It's just in his DNA to take risks, unnecessary risks, and it usually doesn't pay off for him. So Jameis wants to be good. His problem is he just has that turnover DNA in his body, that turnover trait that he just can't shake. Sam Darnold, I feel bad for him. I talked about it on the podcast, so I'm not going to really talk about it here, but that ESPN did him dirty. Or as in the words of Le'Veon Bell, ESPN did Sammy dirty, man, and they did. But are the Eagles respected contenders now? I wouldn't go that far. I mean, this is the second time they've saved their season on the road against a really good opponent this year. They did it in week 4 against Green Bay. They had a chance to fall to 1-3. They would have been dead in the water at that point. Instead, they win, get back to 2-2 on the season, turned their season around at that point. They had a chance to drop to 3-5. That would have been a death sentence for this season. I talked about that on the podcast. Instead, they go out and they win on the road versus Buffalo and get back to 500 on the season at 4-4. And I fully expected them to do that. But not for 1 second do I look at the Eagles and say, man, that's a team to be reckoned with. I just think that was a team with their backs against the wall, and I expected them to respond the way that they did. KT the Southern Gent said, how did Jalen Hurts blow his chance at the Heisman yesterday? Hey, they ran into a buzzsaw, man. K-State was playing football, man. But anyway, Reese says only the Bucs could have the league's leading sacker, 2 top 10 receivers, and the league's best rushing defense, and still only be 2-5. Yep, but when you turn it over at the rate that they have this season, that's how you end up 2-5. And some of those numbers are hollow, empty numbers. You know what I mean? Some of those receiving numbers are coming in garbage time, but. Turnovers are the great equalizer. I've said that before. You can play as well as you want to on offense, but if you turn it over, you can have a drive that needs to go 87 yards to result in a touchdown, and you can have a flawless drive that's 83 yards. The final 4 yards that you don't convert, and you end up turning it over, throwing a pick, or missing out on an opportunity, fumbling the football, whatever the case may be. That's been the Bucs this season. They've done some really good things, and then the flip side of the coin, they've turned it over, and that'll break your back every single time. Reese says, I'm still waiting for the damn Patriots to portray themselves as the underdog again. Makes me sick. Well, right now they're playing that no one respects us because we haven't played anyone card. So I think they're using that to their advantage right now, but that shit stops. This game against Cleveland was the first of a string of games against respectable opponents. So that whole we haven't played anybody narrative goes out the window. They're on the road at Baltimore on Sunday night. That shit's done. So now you can't play that card anymore. KT the Southern Gent says, or Big Jack KC25 says, the Chiefs really need a bye week right about now with all the injuries, especially on defense. My goodness. I think they lost the ex-Saints pass rusher tonight. He got injured. They already were without Frank Clark. They were already without their big defensive tackle that can get after the quarterback. They were already without Kendall Fuller. I mean, they were banged up on defense. Chris Jones at defensive tackle, Kendall Fuller at corner, Frank Clark at edge rusher. I mean, and I just talked about the ex-New Orleans Saint and Arizona Cardinal edge rusher that was out. They're banged up, and they need Mahomes back. So yes, the bye week. I think they are going into a bye, if I'm not mistaken, this week. It couldn't have come at a better time for them. Azad Bilal says, do you think the Niners can beat Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, or Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs? Got to get there first. Obviously, 7-0 is a great start to get there. I don't see a collapse coming now with the way they play defense. So let's just assume they're going to make the postseason. Where are you ranked in the postseason? Are you the number 1 seed? Are you the number 2 seed? I think it is important where you play. Yes, that run game and defense travels, and they have both of those things in spades. But I think it would be advantageous for them to be playing in the comfy confines of Levi Stadium in front of a crowd that would be beside themselves, raucous in San Francisco. I think that they'd love to fill that stadium up with a bunch of screaming, rabid 49ers fans. And, oh, by the way, in January, when it's really cold in the East, for you to be playing out west where it's going to be nice and warm, I think that's also a very advantageous situation for the 49ers. So, again, where is this game being played? Are you going to the frozen tundra? Are you going to Green Bay where it's going to be cold as shit outside? Are you going to New Orleans where that's a crazy fan base and that crowd can get it rocking in the dome? Or are you at home in front of your home faithful? So that's the real question for me. Where do you end up in terms of seating? But they're very capable because of the two things I mentioned. I am not sold on Jimmy G right now. I think Jimmy G is serviceable enough to get them there. Can he win them a playoff game? Not quite sure about that, but I do know this. They can run the hell out of the football, and their defense is ferocious and legit. So, yes, they can beat Russell. And, oh, by the way, you don't want to go to Seattle either. But they can beat Russell. They can beat Drew. And, yes, they can beat Aaron Rodgers in the postseason because they play defense and they can run the football. KT, the Southern Gent, says, bigger need for the Dolphins, Tua or Chase Young. Quarterback, obviously. Got to have the quarterback. But I don't know if that guy's Tua or not. I'm not sure. Gregory Lightbody says, do you think Haskins is the next Jameis Winston? He could be. For all we know, we're not sure. You know, it's too small of a sample size with Dwayne Haskins to say. And this is the thing. I don't think Haskins is necessarily a turnover machine. But we didn't have a large enough sample size at Florida State because at Ohio State because remember, Jameis had the national championship season at Florida State, and then the next year after that, he was a turnover machine before he was drafted number 1 overall. So who's to say that Jameis or who's to say that Dwayne Haskins, who had 50 touchdowns, 8 interceptions last year, wasn't going to follow that up with a 37-19 interception season at Ohio State this next year? Who's to say he wasn't going to do that? Probably not, but who's to say he wasn't? Hard to say right now. I'm not going to say that he is the next Jameis Winston, but he could be. You know, he could be the next Warren Moon. He could be the next Ben Roethlisberger for all we know. Who's to say? Reese says, you and I are on the same page, Lou. Jameis cares. He always plays hard. He cannot shake the turnover bug. He just can't. And that's how I feel about Jameis. I really do. And the dude wants to win. He wants to be great. His problem is he just can't help himself. He sees a receiver and he thinks that he can get it in there every time. No matter how many defenders are there, no matter what the coverage says and what it dictates and what he should do, he trusts his abilities way too much. KR says, Sam Spooky Vision Darnold. I feel so bad for Sammy, man. Junior 13 says, did the Saints give Michael Thomas a jet sweep today? Guess you can only be on a good team and do that even if it fails. Yeah. I mean, they got the juice out there, man. Whatever they do right now, it seems like it just turns the Saints gold right now. KT, the Southern Gent, says, does anyone claim Josh Gordon once he... Of course somebody's going to claim him once he claims waivers. Are you crazy? Dude's still uber talented. And there are plenty of teams that could use receiver help. Young Deck says, who do you think would be the number 1 and 2 seeds in each conference? Again, hard to say right now. Half the season is gone, essentially. Most teams have played 8 games. Every team has played at least 7. But, again... or at least with the exception of the 2 teams on Monday night. Dolphins haven't played 7 games yet, and neither have the Steelers. But both will have after Monday night's contest. But it's hard to say because the schedule is going to ratchet up. The 49ers haven't seen the Seahawks yet. Okay, that could be 2 wins. That could be 2 losses. That could be a split. There's a lot of football left to be played. You know, the Saints have played exceptional ball, but they haven't really gotten into the teeth of their divisional play yet, you know, and so shit heats up once you start playing teams in the division. And so we'll see what happens when they start playing the Panthers. And, yeah, the Falcons stink, but it's family business. You know how that goes. You know, anything can happen. And so, you know, and the Packers, they're killing it in their division right now. You know, they're 3-0, if I'm not mistaken, already in the division, but all of them were played at home. They played Detroit at home. They played Minnesota at home. They played Chicago on the road, okay? So they still got to go on the road to Detroit, on the road to Minnesota. They've still got some toughies, all right? So it's hard for me to say. I hate to be indecisive and kind of dance around your question, but I can tell you the Patriots are going to be the number 1 seed out west in the AFC. I can tell you that. And most likely, the Chiefs are probably still going to be your 2 seed. I can give you that information. Maybe Baltimore is capable of toppling the Chiefs. They've lost to them already this season, but with the Chiefs' issues at home, and and we'll see what Baltimore is able to do. That's going to be a big game for them next week on Sunday Night Football versus the Patriots. That's a statement game. You beat the previously undefeated New England Patriots, and that says a lot. Excuse me. So we're going to find out a lot about the Ravens next week. That's a big litmus test for them. Reese says, could Kenyon Drake be a potential trade for the Bucks? Would he be a good fit? I love Kenyon Drake's. I talked about this on my podcast, so if you haven't checked it out, go there. Louie T Network podcast, episode 59. Talked about the trade deadline, some guys to look out for. I think Kenyon Drake would be a great fit for a lot of teams in this league, including Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Would you use him correctly is the real question. That's the question I have. Haven't really been that impressed with your utilization of your backs in Tampa. So I don't know if he would get the proper shine in Tampa Bay or not. But Kenyon Drake has a lot of talents, all of which aren't on full display in Miami. He goes to the right team with the right coaching staff that understands his skill set and how to put him in position to succeed. And you can see Kenyon Drake really do some really good things in this league. KR says, do you believe the Nationals can make a comeback in the World Series? Hashtag Braves who? I'm actually rooting for them to lose the next game as well and complete a nice 4-game sweep after going up 2-0 and looking like they were about to mop the Astros. They're in our spot. The Braves should be in the World Series right now. The Nationals wanted no smoke with the Braves, and the Reds did their dirty work for them, or Reds. The Cardinals did their dirty work for them and gave them a free pass to the World Series, but they're getting what they deserve now. So hopefully the Astros can go back to Houston, finish those boys off, and allow me to enjoy the rest of my football season in peace and not have to hear it from national fans that they won the damn World Series. Anyway, KT the Southern Gent says, how big of a bombshell for next year's quarterback class would it be if Trevor Lawrence came out in next year's draft? Well, he's coming out next year. Wouldn't you expect him to? He's eligible for the first time next year. I would expect him to. I don't think that would be a bombshell. Reese says, Aaron Rodgers built the hospital he was born in. Junior 13 says, Cleveland needs some change. Probably even some players need to go. Beckham doesn't look like NY13. Play calling Mayfield. I just feel like it's not. I told you this was going to happen. Like, people just expect guys to show up and then instantly they're going to just make beautiful music together. It takes chemistry and synergy for this stuff to work, especially with a guy like Odell Beckham, who is a guy that just needs more touches. He needs more targets because you can throw it to him 3 times and just keep going to him. And on that 7th throw, it's a slant, like we saw in the Jets game. I think that's a perfect example. You know, he had targets in that game, and he hadn't done anything. He had that one-handed catch. I take that back. He started fast in that game, but, you know, you keep feeding him the football, all of a sudden, boom, 85-yard slant to the crib. That's what Odell Beckham can provide you, but you have to get him the requisite targets for that to happen. He's a volume scorer. If he were in the NBA, he'd take 27 shots to get his 39 points, all right? But you got to keep feeding him. And this offense right now, they're just kind of stagnant. You know, I think they overvalued what they were going to be this year, and they underestimated just how poorly their offensive line was going to perform. And I think they realized that they had a fatal flaw on their team, their offensive line, and that's why they're trying desperately at this trade deadline to fix it. And there are players out there that could help them and teams that are just unwilling to help them in a situation in a time of need. So it's rough for the Browns, but I would not give up on this experiment. And I'm even hearing that your boy Freddie Kitchens could be one and done. I don't agree with that move either, but we will see. I want to see how he plays this thing out. If they look like a team that has absolutely quit on their coach, or he continues to look clueless on the sidelines, and they end up going 5-11, and he looks pretty bad in doing so, then maybe you consider that he's not the right guy. But I think you got to give him an opportunity because he got Baker going last year. So I just think there's too many moving parts this year, and that's why you're seeing them struggle right now. Anyway, have we hit our hour mark? I think we are pretty damn close. Looks like it. I'll answer a couple more and we'll get out of here. KT, the Southern Gent, says, which teams are being slept on in each conference? Um, I don't know if anybody's really being slept on per se. I think there are some teams that maybe flying under the radar a bit. Minnesota being one in the NFC for sure. I think they're quietly going about their business. They haven't played anybody good, and that's part of the reason they're going under the radar in the last few weeks when they went on this run. They've beat the Giants. They've beat the Eagles, which is a solid victory, but Eagles weren't all that. They've beat the Raiders. They've beat the Redskins. The Lions were solid at the time they beat them, but it's family business, so that's respect. But they're 6-2, a quiet 6-2, if there's a such thing. Conversely, you look at the AFC. I still think that the Buffalo Bills are a good football team, despite the loss today. They're 5-2 right now. I think they're a really good football team, and I would not discount what they could potentially be. Also, the Houston Texans, even though they lost J.J. Watt today, that's a big loss. And the Indianapolis Colts, to me, are some teams that you need to look out for, even though I think the Colts still have some growing to do as a football team. And the Texans are inconsistent, but those are 5-3. I think the Colts are 5-2. The Texans are 5-3. Those are two quality football teams there in that AFC South division. So those are a couple. Obviously, you look at the Ravens. I think that's a team too. A lot of people didn't expect a lot from this year. I was one of the few that thought they were going to be really good this year. I didn't think they were going to win the division. I thought Pittsburgh would, but I thought the Ravens were going to make the playoffs. And I know there were a lot of people that didn't even think the Ravens would win double-digit games, and they still may not, But to go to Seattle last week and win the way that they did, I thought that was pretty damn impressive. And I like the Ravens. I've liked them coming into the season. I like them even more now. And I think this is a team that could easily do some damage in the playoffs. But we'll see. They got to get there first. Reese says, not only that, he also drove his mom home from the hospital the day he was born. He's a bad, bad man. Junior says, Minshew Mania back. He looked good. Where does that leave Foles? Look, Foles, I think, still is your starter when he comes back. Similar to Cam Newton in Carolina. Once the starter is healthy, I think he's back in the saddle. They're not paying Nicholas Foles all that money to not play. Minshew's played well, but I think they would go to Foles if he's healthy. And then if Foles struggles, then you can go back to Minshew. But I think there's an interesting conversation to be had in Jacksonville for sure. But I think the move that will be made is Nicholas Foles being inserted back into the starting lineup. Reese says, Mike Evans is the best receiver in that 2014 draft class. He's better than Odell. Talent-wise, he's not better than Odell. Production-wise, he probably has been. But here's the thing. Even though we rag on Jameis and we know Jameis turns it over, Jameis is going to give him opportunities to make plays. The same can't be said for Odell throughout the entire course of his career. He hasn't had guys that have always given him opportunities to make plays. He thought he was going to get that opportunity in Cleveland with Baker. It really hasn't worked out right now. But the consistency that Mike has had since he's entered the league, which has pretty much been Jameis Winston, and 50-50 was in there too, Fitzpatrick. But we all know Fitz is going to give you a chance to make plays. He'll throw that bitch up in the double coverage, triple coverage, even. So he's always had guys that have given him opportunities to make plays, and that Mike has done throughout his career. KT, the Southern Gent, says, do you think the Bears draft trade for a quarterback, is it over for Phillip Rivers? I don't think Phillip Rivers is done in Los Angeles, and I think you're going to still see him get an extension, maybe a 2-3 year extension out there in Los Angeles. I don't see him going anywhere. And as far as the Bears are concerned, I don't think it's time to move on from him quite yet. He put his team in a position to win. I thought the coaching was poor at the end. You taking knees. You've had kicking issues since you've gotten a job in Chicago, and you think it's okay to take a knee and lose a couple of yards. And that was the difference between that make and a miss. If he doesn't take a knee and they run a play and they pick up a yard or no gain, that might be a field goal that's good. I mean, that's coaching though. So anyway, Young Deck says, when do you think Cam Newton will come back from injury? I think the target date for him is probably around week 10. If I were to guess, 10, 11, somewhere in there. but we'll see. But anyway, let me answer this last question from my man, Captain Spartan. He says, what's with all these teams refusing to trade their players? Trade AJ Green, Patrick Peterson, Trent Williams, Darius Slay, Chris Harris, and others I'm forgetting. They deserve to win. It's not about what deserves to happen. It's about what is best for the teams that they're on right now. And in some of those instances, like the Trent Williams situation and even AJ Green, the best move is to probably move that guy. Talked about that on the podcast. But in the case of Detroit, if you're trying to build a winner, it's not smart to trade Darius Slay. If I'm Denver, if I'm not getting what I think is equal value for Chris Harris, I'm not trading him. And that's what they said. Now, if somebody knocks their socks off, I'm pretty sure Denver would be willing to part with Chris Harris Jr. But if I'm the head coach of the Denver Broncos, I don't know if I want to move on from Chris Harris because I'm a defensive guy and he allows me to do some of the things schematically that I want to do on defense because he's so good in man-to-man. So I don't know if moving on from him is what Vic Fangio would necessarily want them to do. Patrick Peterson, if I'm Arizona, maybe I consider giving him up. We played the first 6 games without him. He's a vocal, emotional leader in that locker room. But, by the time you get where you want to be as a football team, Peterson's probably out of his prime at that point. So why not get something for him? I agree, But in any event, Captain Spartan says, I'm not saying we're losing tomorrow, but I'm extremely nervous. Hopefully Minka can have a beastly revenge game. You shouldn't be nervous. I understand, though, Fitty can make you nervous, and he can make plays. You know, I don't have to tell you. He had your ass on the ropes last year on a Monday night. All right? However, I fully expect you guys to get the win. And your defense is flying around, and I think you're going to create some turnovers, and you're going to beat the Miami Dolphins. So there's that. But in any event, I thank you guys for joining me. Once again, Packers get the win. 31-24, improved to 7-1 on the season. Meanwhile, the Chiefs lose their 3rd straight. I never thought I would say that in 2019, that the Chiefs have lost 3 straight at home, no less. But that's where they are right now, and they hope to get Mahomes back in a couple of weeks. And so now they're 5-3 on the season. That's going to do it for your man, Louie T. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. I'll see you guys tomorrow for Rep Your Squad, where you can call in live and rep your squad. Don't let the Redskins fans take over the damn show, man. It's 2 weeks in a row. Y'all have allowed Redskins fans to dominate Rep Your Squad. All right, they got plenty of content on the channel. I created Rep Your Squad for you guys out there that don't get a chance to talk about your team on this channel enough. And yet you let the Redskins fans dominate Rep Your Squad. Call in and rep your damn squad. All right, but in any event, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your night. I will see you tomorrow. Adios. Amañana.
Louie T Network.